What's up, dudes?
What's up, guys?
That's nothing.
Per usual.
Oh, what's
We
up?
had a little bloodbath yesterday. That was got a little shivers in. Yeah.
So,
I gave
are
my
we?
friend the reference of like a hot air balloon. Like, you got to pull it and go up, and then you got to like let it float. Then you got to let it like add more fuel. Eventually, like you say, screw it, and you just like burn out all the fuel, and you just go like straight up.
So we're in
And then
alt.
you go straight down.
So this is alt season talk, right? I mean, like we're talking about hot air balloons now. Where are we in alt season? Is this the monster alt season, or is it yet to be determined? Or some things are already looking like all-time high toppy.
I think people are making their bets.
Yeah. We saw Suzu come out yesterday with some like congratulatory remarks to Multicoin, which I thought was pretty pretty fascinating. But it was also kind of toppy to me. Just like one hedge fund just was like, "Hey, look at these guys. These guys have been doing awesome." And then Tishar was just like, "Thank you. This is what we did." Thought that was pretty interesting. It's a pretty interesting environment. I don't know where exactly we're at. I think there are some movers still that need to come. So I don't think alt season is done. I watched I listened to a podcast with Kyle Davies, one of the guys from Three Arrows, and he was like, we're very much macro bullish for the long term bullish. So like even if this is a short term top, they're still very, very bullish on crypto in general. And DeFi is something that's done pretty well recently. It's kind of survived the yesterday's crash, if you will, pretty well. So I still think this rally has legs, at least for the remainder of the month, maybe going into May a little bit. But it does it's starting to feel like maybe seventh or eighth inning.
Seventh or eighth inning?
Not like, again, it just depends on your time frame. If you have a 30-year time frame or whatever, like we're still like in the third probably inning or something. But for the year, as far as alts are concerned, I don't know. I think Ethereum still has a ways to go. Sol has just crushed all expectations. DOT has crushed all expectations. So yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Dot never hit $100, did it?
I don't think so. No,
yeah, I thought $100 was the price that I heard circulating around like into last year for like a top for this year.
I can't imagine that we're anywhere close to the end of an alt season.
I don't think we are.
I mean, I'm looking at some of these charts. I'm looking at and they're so different right now. Not that I'm looking at the right shit, but I'm just saying, like, of all this stuff I'm looking at, like, everything is so different. Like, if you look at the Zcash chart, that's one thing. And if you look at like the Dogecoin chart, that's another thing. If you look at like the HNT chart, completely different thing. If you look at the Mana chart, and like some stuff is at all-time highs, especially on a Bitcoin look. And then some stuff, it's like will it ever even get close to the previous all-time highs? And they're all different, you know, but the mature stuff, the majors, that doesn't look done at all. But I think some of the fringe stuff is probably like had its moment. And it's all going other places unless we get another big push, like another, all right, we're coming out to the party again, you know? And we could. And I think like that's what I'm looking at when I see, like, to me, this is the beginning of alt season. Like, if it's going to happen, catalyst? We're at the beginning. What did you say? What's the catalyst of it starting?
Yeah, in your mind.
I mean, I think it's already started, but the catalyst of like throwing gasoline on the fire is all this money. You've been saying it for months, Ro. All the money in the world is about to flow into crypto. I've been having dreams with you reverberating that in the back of my brain when I'm just going about my business in my dream.
Mission accomplished.
But like the stimulus money, the free money, like the additional EIDL program email that I just got, like there's just so much like money for businesses, money for people, money for like, there's so much money and they're printing more. And last time, lockdown, summer, like you saw stocks, you saw all these people get into Robinhood and options, and you know, Tesla stock went all the way up to, you know, $600 or whatever, you know, on that run. And we were all talking about it back then. I was like, man, what the hell? Like, how come Bitcoin's not going? How come money's not flowing into crypto? It's staying in the stock market in this crazy environment. Look at this place. Look at this crypto world. And we were over here on, you know, $10, $12, $5,000 Bitcoin, right? It got all the way down to, I think, $5,000. Yeah, okay, $3,000. And, you know, none of that money, none of that, like those stimulus checks last year flowed in to crypto. I mean, some of it did, but not like what we saw flow in to the stock market and what's been flowing in. Where were kids putting their money over the last 6 to 8 months? GameStop and, you know, and like all the, like Tesla and all the different ways that you can buy that stuff. And this time, if it's coming into crypto, we're about to see like the alt season of all alt seasons. Like we've been waiting in line for weeks for the concert, you know, and they're turning the lights down right now.
So I think you're probably right. I thought it was super fascinating yesterday, or maybe like the night before, at least in where I'm at, Coinbase released their financials for Q1 and they reported fucking monster numbers, and everybody expected them to report monster numbers. And then we saw the market sell off, you know? So anybody who wasn't expecting that was like, oh shit, Coinbase is here. IPO is going to be, or direct listing is going to be in the next week. I'm just going to go ahead and get in ahead of this. And, you know, whenever you have a bunch of retail people buy shit, you typically have a dump afterwards. And so I think that's what happened, which was like a very quick taste of sell the news. You know, this was a news event and there was a sell the news event. A lot of people probably bought. Anybody who's new to crypto probably bought there and was like, okay, Coinbase is coming. You experience this 20% dump right off the bat. You know, welcome to crypto. And things are coming down today. You know, we got some nice bounces. I think that is the catalyst to what you're saying, Rishi. The Coinbase direct listing, they're asking for a $100 billion valuation, and that's more than like any bank is worth. And so it's like it's pretty phenomenal to see, you know, traditional finance just like talk shit about crypto for all of these years, and then finally Coinbase goes public and just puts them in their place. It's just like, I don't know, it's one of the most like fulfilling things for me in my life at this moment with this stupid diet I'm on. Anyway, continue.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I think one thing also to consider is the retail investors that have already been in the space. And I think the effect that this bull market, along with the pullback, I think the effect that had on them is going to end up being like the real catalyst, right? Because I listen to my friends, and like it's like signals, it's like there's patterns to it. It's like the same people contact me about the same things on the same days. And one of the guys who I love him to death, but he has the worst timing when it comes to like his decision making on pulling money in the market, pulling money out of the market. And I got him into the Singularity Net ICO, and we were talking, and he's wanting to sell about half of what he like his proceeds from it. And he was saying like, look, man, I had a number to where when I got there, I was going to pull half. And then it got to that, and I increased my number. And then it got to that, and I increased my number. And then it got to that, and I increased my number. And he's like, and now I'm like down from like below. Like I'm still above that first number, but I'm way below those other numbers. And it's just like, I want to come Friday and get you to help me set up a MetaMask and help you get me set up ready to pull and sell half my position when the price goes above 50 cents. And it's just like, to me, that's the real catalyst, right? Because it's like these people who really like, they wouldn't have felt like they really don't have a lot of business investing in this stuff. And now they're going to pull a lot of money out and flex. And other people are going to see it, and they're going to be like, oh, and then they're going to brag and say, oh, I made all this money, right? And then the price is going to go higher than where they sold it. And then they're going to be in a position to where they either have to buy back even higher, or they lost out. They missed out.
And I think
I feel like that ripple effect is like a big part of the catalyst.
Yeah. And most people, like you're saying, will FOMO back in. When they have that option and they see it's still going up after they've met their number that's been raised, like you said, and hit it, and finally, and then they see it keep on going, most people will FOMO back in. And that's why, like, we're not anywhere close to that. We're not, I mean, we're not, you remember what it was like at the top of the market in 2017? It was like for us and for everybody who sat on a rise like that, it was life-changing. It was life-changing because it gave you, I mean, we didn't cash out, right? I mean, but like what the wealth creation or the wealth, increase right there was significant. And I think that's what's going to happen for a lot of people. And you're starting to see some stuff out there, like, people saying, hey, look, if you've made a lot of money and it's potentially life-changing, you should act on it and, not put it to risk for a bear market. Just kind of zoom out and kind of think about that for a second. But at the same time, I still think we're so far at the beginning, because nobody's really had to have diamond hands. Nobody's really, I mean, like, come on, like, everything's been going up. Nobody's really been put to the test. And if I know at all that there's any reason to think that, like, it's really alt season after all these years, is, when Tyler Frost puts up a Bitcoin to the moon piece of art, it's alt season.
One thing I mentioned the podcast I listened to with Kyle Davies earlier. They've crushed it, right? Obviously, along with Multicoin, they've crushed it. And I think the biggest thing I gained from it was he was just saying, like, retail is not the people driving this rally anymore. Like retail hasn't been the driver of this. It's been institutions. And specifically, I thought it was really fascinating when he said around 40, 41K, they were selling. Kyle's selling, like starting to take some off the table there. And then they got the Tesla announcement, and that just changed everything. That was because you started, having companies, Fortune 500 companies, biggest companies in the world, put Bitcoin on their balance sheets. And I thought that was pretty interesting because, 40K, it was getting toppy. We all kind of felt like it was getting a little up there, and so, now here we are sitting at, let's just say 50, 58, maybe just call it 60K. We've just kind of been sitting there for a while. Like, I think the catalyst this time isn't going to be the announcement of like Walmart buying Bitcoin or anything. I think the catalyst is going to be the Coinbase IPO. But after that, what will take Bitcoin, if it doesn't hit 100K this time, before in the next couple months, what will take Bitcoin to our end of year target of like 222K?
Are you hating on my leak that Walmart's building the Bitcoin position? Are you hating on that right now?
No, I've seen it. I've seen it a couple places. I'm not hating on it. I think it's awesome. Like mainstream adoption is huge, but like, what is it to say Walmart had put $1 billion into Bitcoin? Bitcoin is $1 trillion asset. It's like, what is it to really say that? Yeah, it takes it off the books, limits supply, which is awesome, like long term. But I'm just talking like, more short term. Obviously, again, you have the Coinbase direct listing, but what is going to take it to end of year targets? And it might meet, and like I could be wrong, like it could be like the combination of Walmart and Target or any other company. Apple, has Apple come out and said? I forget.
Yeah, you can I think you can use Bitcoin in Apple Pay, or at least I know that was being worked on. Like I don't know if it's able to be used yet, but they were working on it.
Yeah, and I mean, like you got Morgan Stanley and all these guys offering it to their high net worth clients. Obviously macro bullish for sure, but yeah, I'm just trying to think like what would be
I
that.
do think though that having Bitcoin on Apple is kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? Because I think that once people put their Bitcoin on their cell phone, then the carry rule for like moving from place to place and going across borders, I think it's going to end up really hurting some people, and people are going to get caught for tax fraud, among other things, when they start actually keeping crypto on their phone.
I was telling you guys before we hopped on about that Peter Thiel article. It's not directly related to what you were saying, Tyler, but it was very much like a China versus US press conference, if you will, panel. And he was just like, at this point, he fully admitted to being like a pro crypto, pro Bitcoin maximalist person was the term he used, which I thought was pretty funny. But at this point, he was suggesting like you have to consider it that like China is using this as a financial weapon to destabilize the status of the US dollar as a reserve currency. And so far, they're very much ahead of the game. What do you guys like? Do you think there's some credence to that?
Well, he also said that he also related it to the euro and how China would view the euro as potentially destabilizing to the U.S. reserve currency, the petrodollars, the everything like that. Just since we hold such high leverageability on the world with the dollar, he was saying really any currency that potentially dethrones the dollar as that single reserve currency would be destabilizing in some ways. So that just makes logical sense. It was interesting in that 1.5 minute clip or whatever I watched, just to see how he was just carefully skirting the lines of trying to logically explain it without triggering anybody from a political or nationalistic perspective. But I do kind of worry about China and their involvement with Bitcoin just for a little bit, like from controlling the hardware and the processing power of the network. If you were to group all the operations in China together as China, it's more than 51%. I don't think that Peter Thiel was talking about that, but I mean, just in general, China as China versus U.S. is, why are like all the smartest people in the world concerned with China? So yeah, I see
definitely some credence
to that.
Well, yeah, I think China just like because of their government structure and then the way that they're incentivized and the way they're able to do things outside of the law and not really be threatened. They just have such an advantage in every aspect of everything. And one of the things I learned in my times working with Everest is what money should be, and China has the best ability to build money, right? Because money, you should be able to know not just like what it is, but where it came from, where it's at, and what it goes to. And there should be all this track, trace, identity, information that's attached to the money. And that's a scary future just because of the lack of privacy. But we couldn't implement a currency like that here in the US. We couldn't implement a currency like that here in Canada. But if they implement something like that over in China and then they start, forcing other people to do business with them in that basis, all of a sudden you're very quickly talking about governments and other countries starting to collect a huge amount of data on their populace just because they want to keep doing business with China. They want to keep selling to China. And it's there's your big brother, your big brother currency right there.
Yeah, they just mentioned, digitizing their currency, or getting the steps in place to do that. Another big topic of that panel was AI and, exactly what you described, using their digitized money to basically gain almost unlimited access into that person, or into their population. So yeah, I mean, it is very real, a very real threat. They have made tremendous improvements. It did seem like, this was a very conservative panel. It did seem a little fear mongering, in the sense that it gave me Cold War vibes. Not that I was particularly alive or anyway, it gave me some Cold War vibes, just because it seems like there is this sort of there's just a lot of tension, kind of, again, not necessarily as overt as it was in the during Cold War times, but behind the scenes, it does seem like there is a good bit of tension building up, and yeah, I think Bitcoin is a. I mean, it makes sense to be part of China's plans, and they've had 10 years to kind of figure it out. They were on top of it way before the United States were. So yeah, it is kind of interesting. And so I guess that brings me to the point, the last conversation I heard with 3 Years Capital was the only existential threat to Bitcoin now, maybe not the only one, but the major one, is U.S. regulation. And after hearing Peter Thiel's got thoughts on Bitcoin in China, and announcing that to the public, it just seems like, hey, and part of that is like the price of Bitcoin and the market value of it is finally something that they can't really ignore anymore. How do you guys view that?
So, Sam Bankman-Fried was the second largest donor to Joe Biden's presidential candidacy, and he controls the Solana ecosystem, the Serum ecosystem. And actually, he controls a lot of the ecosystems across crypto through investment to where he could vampire attack anything. And he's also one of the largest investors in DIG, which is the Bitcoin-based stable currency, inflationary stable currency. And what if he's trying to pitch that Bitcoin should be heavily regulated because there is no one to be held accountable? And this is all just an end game because he knows you can't kill Bitcoin, but that if it was heavily regulated, the price would go down enough to where he could accumulate and get an even more sizable position. I don't know, but like he doesn't come across as a very pro Bitcoin person.
Yeah. I don't know. From everything I read about Sam, it's just hard to speculate on what I think he would do. Yeah, it's hard to speculate just because he's so much smarter than all of us. He's playing 4D chess while we're all playing checkers. So that's a pretty interesting theory. I hadn't really given that one thought.
There was another Bitcoin lobbyist group or crypto lobbyist group that is stepped up. I forgot the name, but that's really good news.
So what do you guys think about Suzu's tip of the hat to Multicoin? And then I guess the next question, the follow-up question is, what do you guys think about this price action with HNT? It's been wild. It's been really, really wild over the last couple of weeks.
I think Suzu's tip of the hat is a really good virtue signal because Tashar and the Multicoin guys got a really bad rap from the way they handled 2017. They had made all these investments and they didn't sell. And so they kind of got a bad rap that they were not very responsible with how they managed their treasury. But their whole thing was we only invest in projects that we believe in, and why would we sell? And so I think Suzu has such good, I guess, street cred that the tip of the hat from him to Tashar not only like signals that, hey, these guys really were the smartest guys, but it also brings a whole bunch of attention from Suzu's betas onto Tashar's backs.
Totally.
So I think that, it's kind of a signal of like, which a lot of people have known for a long time, that you monitor what Multicoin invests in, you invest in them, that a big chunk of that supply is going to be pulled off the market and it's not ever going to be put onto the market, and they're going to facilitate a healthy market for the projects that they invest in. Then, we can talk about helium after that, but yeah, I'd like to hear Rose's opinion too.
Yeah, I didn't know exactly. I didn't know exactly how to respond. I think for me, whenever I see congratulatory remarks from particularly high net worth individuals in the crypto sphere, whenever I see congratulatory remarks, I tend to say like, okay, that's like a good time to take profit. You know, when you have the big boys patting themselves on the back, that's like okay, these guys. I don't know. It just seems like everybody's taking some profit off the table here. Not like maybe like cut their positions entirely, but like it seems like a place where, you know, to your point, Tyler, about people like making life-changing amounts of money. I think these guys have done that again, and they've taken some exposure off the table. That's how I interpreted it.
I kind of saw it as like him trying to throw gasoline on the fire. It's like, hey, if you haven't heard about what Multicoin's doing, look into their projects. If you're looking for a place to put your money, look into these projects, because he listed them.
Yeah, he did.
So I mean, I feel like it was hype. I don't even feel like it was to Multicoin. I feel like it was to retail. I feel like it was to his Twitter followers. I feel like he was just putting shit out there and being like, oh yeah, check out this shit. Pump.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. But it's like it's the whole thing was like that's what they're signaling. You know, they publicly stated these guys are crushing it. But what do you do in the back end? You probably do the opposite of what you signal when you have that much attention on you. And so these guys, you know, these guys are some of the smartest guys in crypto. They were on top of helium when it was $1.50. They were on top of all this shit when it was down there. Maybe not entirely, you know, but like they had contemplated it. They had teams to contemplate whether these investments would be worthwhile, and maybe they missed some of them, but you know they got their returns elsewhere, or they piggybacked off these guys as well. So yeah, I don't see Suzu and Three Arrows Capital buying the coins they listed here right now. I think they're all awesome projects, you know, don't get me wrong, but it was more of like all of these projects have crushed it. These projects were funded by Multicoin. And yeah, you know, like it's not that they can't keep on going up. It's just that they have all crushed it. You know, they've all had outsized returns relative to other names in the market. So it just seems like again, whenever I see people pat themselves on the back, that's a sell signal for me.
I'm reading the tweet now. I can see that.
Will you read it for us, Tyler?
I gotta say, Multicoin has absolutely crushed it this cycle. And then he lists Solana, Serum, Binance Coin, the Graph Protocol, Thorchain, Aave, Arweave, Helium, and says I'm probably missing some in there as well. So like I'm probably missing some in there as well as like, hey, go do your own research and find the stuff that hasn't crushed it yet. But like then I'm reading like has absolutely crushed it this cycle. And to me it sounds like I'm about like thank you. You made me a lot of money. I'm about to get out of my positions and rebalance my portfolio.
That's how I interpreted it. But,
yeah, I mean, that's how I read it. That's how I read it now that I'm reading it.
How many followers does he have, and who's following him?
Oh, he's got 130,000 followers, and he's followed by 190 people that I follow. And I follow 370 people. On average, most people are followed by like 4 to 6 people that I follow.
So it's either the beginning of alt season or it's the end
of this leg
cycle.
of this cycle.
Yeah. So
we could see some blow off the tops, and then we could see some downward pressure.
Okay. So nobody knows. So here we are in alt season.
I think it's still like it's been interesting because this alt season has been different than seasons past. In that typically you have Bitcoin run, then you have the majors that follow, and then all the shit coins are the last left. In this one, you had Bitcoin run, but you skipped all the majors. You skipped Litecoin, you skipped Zcash, you skipped XRP, you skipped like all the majors.
Zcash looks like it's ready for a launch pad.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so, but like a lot of shitcoins really had some awesome returns if you positioned yourself well. So yeah, I think we're not done yet, but I think this is the phase where everybody gets rich. Everybody who's been in crypto gets rich. Well, yeah. Well, like, yeah, like your 2017, like people who got into crypto in 2017 with that price. This is these next few weeks, April, maybe all the way to May 17th. That's when the tax deadline is. For the next month or so, that I could see like really like I think Link looks amazing right now. I think Zcash looks amazing.
ZRX.
Yeah, ZRX. Litecoin even has some life to it. So yeah, and like honestly, even the Bitcoins, BSV and Bitcoin Cash, they have some life breathed into them recently. So yeah, I mean, if those coins start moving, then that's everybody, like everybody who's been in crypto since 2017, that's when they get rich. And so I think we're very close to like a blow off the top sort of thing. And then we'll see probably a pullback. Bitcoin, I've been bearish on Bitcoin relatively for the last couple of weeks, but we've really just stuck into this range, like this 55 to 60K range. And that's like consolidation at resistance is typically bullish. You're just building a base to launch from. And so if we do launch, let's just say go to 75 or 88, whatever the number is, I could see us launch, everybody gets rich, and then everything pulls back. This is when you don't want to be in alts, you don't want to be in Bitcoin, you actually want to be in cash, which is crazy, which is weird because the dollar is probably going to be losing value too. And so it's just going to be a pretty difficult time all around. But that's what you need to shake out all the people to show who has diamond hands, essentially.
See, okay, here's my thing, right? I think we're trying to like replay 2017 cycle, like in our head. But in reality, like the whole reason we got into Bitcoin in the first place was in case something like 2020 happened. And it happened. And so now I feel like it's kind of like the whole like internet, like it finally happened. They finally got the internet working. You can build websites on it. You can build businesses on it. It actually works. Pets.com. Oh my gosh, everybody loves pets. And so like, I think that like 2020 is like, oh my gosh, like they actually built this store of value. Like they actually built this global value money system. And so like, I hear the narrative often about like everybody keeps asking where's the big dip, like everybody keeps looking for it, and everybody keeps like, oh, you guys don't know anything. A 17% pullback, like that's nothing. That's not. But it's like, you think about it, we may not see a big dip. I mean, it's just as hard to hold things that go straight up as it is to hold things that go straight down. Like,
you're right about that. And I hear you. At some point, like institutions.
Just for the record, I do agree with you that like what I feel like we're in for is these alts that have been running like helium and other things. I suspect that we have a blow off the top in the very near future, and then we see some bearish consolidation until we see another, like until they run hard later in the cycle. But I think that what we're about to get is the majors. I think we're going to get Zcash, Litecoin, Ethereum Classic. Then we're going to get the bull. I think we're in for the majors to start running. Doge I mean, like all the old coins look primed right now, and so I think that all of the innovative stuff were the outliers from now. Previous, I think the outliers were like the really innovative stuff. Helium, Kusama, AGI, like all these things. Then they're probably going to go into like a bearish, blow off the top, bearish consolidation, and then run later in the year, like in June, July.
Well, yeah, I would say I'm just thinking about what Jason from Telegram said. And, it was like solid Q1, or no, strong Q1, solid Q2, summer lull, and then solid Q4. So, starting in May, again, I've talked about it before, but like there's that old adage, sell in May and go away. Maybe I think we are all generally in agreement, but I actually had this thought, how after listening to that or reading that transcript from Peter Thiel, and it's kind of unrelated to it, but it seems like Bitcoin, the primary narrative now is like digital gold, and there's a lot of credence to that, but it seems like to me, Ethereum and a lot of other stuff, Ethereum and all of its killers, is like the stock market, because that's where all the innovation happens. That's where like new companies are being built. That's where, that just seems like the stock market to me. In this kind of Bitcoin is gold, digital gold, and pretty much Ethereum and all these other things are digital protocols or digital stock markets, if you will.
Digital silicon?
What do you mean?
Because it's like the global compute network. I mean,
yeah. What do you think, Rishi?
I don't know.
The only reason I say I had that thought was because I was just trying to put things into perspective. Bitcoin dominance right now is like 54% or something, 50 around there. And gold is a $10 trillion asset, let's just say somewhere around there. But the market is huge. The market is massive. And I think that is what's going to happen. I could be wrong. And obviously Suzu at 3 Hours Capital, this is very what his take is, but Bitcoin will continue to grow as a digital store of value, like digital gold. And it'll probably happen first. But I think ultimately you have Ethereum and all these other things, which may not individually be bigger than Bitcoin. You don't have any $10 trillion companies right now. But collectively, they will be much larger than digital gold. And we're not there yet. You know, Bitcoin is at 50% of all crypto in the sphere. And it just seems like, you know, there's still more growth to be had outside of Bitcoin, because that, in my opinion, should really be closer to 20% dominance for Bitcoin long term.
The Bitcoin dominance is at 54%.
Let me confirm.
So, because if it is, it's come down quite a bit. I mean, I think it was 61 or 68% just, you know, back last summer.
It topped out at the beginning of 2021 at 73, 74%, and now it is at 56.5.
So, you know, if we consider like the Bitcoin dominance is a function of like how much money is in Bitcoin relative to the entire crypto market. So when we say Bitcoin dominance at 54%, 54% of the money that's in crypto is in Bitcoin. So in some ways, kind of look at that and say, okay, well, at times 70% of the money was in Bitcoin, like in more like before now, earlier times, when there weren't as many alt options. There wasn't a flourishing ecosystem like there is now, where you can send your money anywhere and move it into anything pretty much with little issue, once you're in it. But then if you fast forward and you do believe that, like Ro, to take what you said, that, DeFi and the Ethereum ecosystem and that whole potential is kind of like the stock market, or to use another analogy, kind of like the way that like these are the new cities. Then if you look at it from a building perspective and a funding perspective and a financing perspective, Bitcoin dominance should really be at like 10 to 20%, and it should of the entire ecosystem, and that would function more like a reserve, like a monetary reserve, like a bank would withhold 10%, leverage out, collateralize out, lend out, let it flow into the rest of the ecosystem so it can be utilized, and not, and that's kind of the way that we work. So if you do believe that that's the way of things, that Bitcoin is a reserve, and that everywhere else, the Ethereum ecosystem primarily is what I'm speaking about, that things will be built there, well, then most of the money is going to flow. Most of the working capital in crypto has to flow into the hands of the people who are building it and creating that liquidity. And so we're like you said, Tyler, you can't really compare what's going on now. You can compare it, but you shouldn't necessarily rely on what we learned in 2017 and expect it to repeat itself in the same manner, because it's a different market. It's a completely different cycle. We're 3 years evolved in a 10-year space. We even want to call it a 10-year space, because back then it was just Bitcoin. So, I mean, if we think that that's the way it is, I mean, like, why should Bitcoin dominance stay above 25%? Most people, when they bring their money into crypto, are they going to be buying Bitcoin? They're not. Most people, most retail, they're not. What are those corporations going to do with their Bitcoin? Tyler, that might be a good question for you. You might already know. What's Tesla going to do sitting on that Bitcoin? What is MicroStrategy's doing? What is Walmart going to do to utilize that Bitcoin? Because cash, they've got it working in financial vehicles. They've got it making more cash. They've got it working. They don't just keep it in a vault.
All the banks in the world are aware of DeFi. They're all aware, and they all want to get in. So, my friend Brian, they on their up only, they did one with Paolo from Bitfinex, and in there he talks about how like these banks, they really want to get in DeFi. They see this yield, and it's unreal. Like they want to get access to this yield, and that's what they're going to do with their Bitcoin. But everything's got to be more regulated. And so the yield farming platforms that have KYC built in are going to be the ones that are going to, like the DeFi with KYC, are going to do well if the yield's good and there's demand for the token, because banks are trying to get in. They just need more regulation for them to move in, because they can't facilitate money laundering. And so, like, literally, when that got brought up, he just smiled from ear to ear, because they were talking about the negative effect of this regulation. And he goes, yeah, but these guys have access to all of the money in the world. Like, so it's like you get in on one of these things early before they've had a chance to tell their banking friends about it, and the person at the bank has figured out how to like get into the contract, and you just got instant mega wealthy. And so I think that a lot of these institutions are gonna turn into yield generating institutions with their treasury. But then I also think some institutions are gonna start performing more arbitrage. And so, like, one thing that we saw that was also part of what happened the other day that brought the markets down was the Korean premium disappeared. So the thing is, people don't understand that, like, I don't know the Korean market maker guy, but sometimes he just doesn't show up to work. Like, sometimes he just wakes up and decides that he doesn't want to like trade that day. And the Korean markets get completely out of whack. And so it requires high net worth, like high frequency traders to come in and take money out of their positions on their exchanges they normally trade at to go and arb the Korean exchanges. And it causes the whole market to sell off while they're taking advantage of the arb opportunity in Korea. And
so actually, like, if I could,
that was a big thing that happened the other day along with the Coinbase thing. But one of the things that was being discussed is that, like, Samsung and Hyundai, once they move into the space, that arb will be gone. They will be the ones that'll like facilitate that whole arb and make sure the Korean market is the same as it is in every other market.
You're right in that there's this thing called the kimchi premium. And in the last cycle in 2017, it was as high as 50%. The price of Bitcoin was like 50% higher than peak prices in America. But I was actually looking into this. It's because the Korean won is not an open currency. It's not a free market currency. It's like a very strict, restrictive peg, and it's incredibly difficult to get in and out of the Korean won. Like, you can convert all your money into it, like your USD into it, but to get it out of that system is like very difficult. And I was actually talking to a guy who just came from Korea. He works in the military, in the U.S. military, but he was just talking about how difficult it was to convert his money back into the United States dollar. And so that's actually what happens, because it's oftentimes not worth U.S. companies or U.S. individuals to convert their currency back into, or to convert USD into the Korean won, because it's almost impossible to get it out. Yes, you could buy stuff in Korea and set up shop there and, basically arb that way, like by buying real assets in the Korean market, but it's not feasible. And I think it was Sam that was talking about this, because he alluded to the same thing was happening in Japan, which is what he did, and made like millions of dollars, $25 million every day, just arbing, because there was this premium in Japan. And so yeah, it was a little bit more nuanced than like the market maker just taking the day off. But but
No, like
yeah,
that literally happened. Like I had a friend, she's a huge market maker in Europe and in Australian markets. And basically there was a day where she didn't sleep for like 30 something hours, because what happened is she woke up and saw that the market maker like just didn't do anything that day, and it was all out of whack. And so basically she was spending all of her time arbing, like she was trying to market make her normal positions, but she was also having to arb. And like basically what it came down to is the person who normally is market making those markets, just like he just decided that he didn't want to do anything that day.
got sick or something.
Yeah.
He was hung
Which,
over.
speaking of, there is I don't know if you got, so like basically a lot of the elite traders in the space right now, a lot of rich Thai elites and a lot of public officials are super sick right now, because they all went to this same high elite nightclub, and it was a super spreader event. And the only people that can really afford to go to this nightclub are like crypto traders trading like 8 and 9 figures, like politicians, and so it was a super spreader event, and they all have got this really bad case of COVID. Some of them are like on ventilators, life support. Like Alex Weiss was on a vent, and like his oxygen levels were really bad. But yeah, isn't that crazy that there was a super spreader, high net worth elite event? I mean, I'm sorry, that's insensitive, but it was bad.
That is pretty
Yeah.
wild.
Well, this is a new world after 2020, and it just goes back to what you said, Tyler. Like, this is why we got into crypto in the first place. Is some system shaking series of events. So, in order to go into this yield system, if you're a large corporation or a financial institution who's looking to get into that kind of stuff, let's say you've stacked a couple billion, let's take the whole Fortune 500 6 months from now. A lot of them, probably the majority of them, will have some Bitcoin. But the ones that have a lot, particularly the ones that got in between 20 and 40, they've doubled their money in Bitcoin on their balance sheets. We're looking at $100,000 Bitcoin for year end potentially. So, that's almost another double, there. What do they do with that? Are they sitting on it? It's locked up in custodial stuff. I mean, at some point, if you got $1.5 billion worth of cash, it makes sense to put it into a CD at the very least, or to invest it in some stable yield, return, with cash, with United States dollars. And so if you trade that in for Bitcoin, you may be saying, well, okay, we're not getting yield on it, we're getting capital appreciation. Well, for how long and how predictable, right? Because what can happen here is it may not be that steady of a return compared to an annuity. You're investing in capital appreciation. I think at some point, like, everybody's going to do what you said, Tyler, and they're going to figure out how to collateralize that, hang on to it, experience that capital appreciation, but take a loan on it, be able to, hold their Bitcoin and move into, or maybe give up their Bitcoin in order to move into the Ethereum ecosystem.
So I think the only thing I'll say to that is most of these companies are business, like they're companies. They have daily operations that are much beyond holding $1 billion in Bitcoin, or $2 billion now. So I think right now they took their $1 billion of free cash and put it into Bitcoin, and that's the only play that any of these Fortune 500 companies are going to take. Maybe like 2 or 3 years down the road, price of Bitcoin is stabilized above 250K, or however much, like I think, yeah, Fortune 500 companies are not interested in this yield game. They're just trying to be conservative. And it's like it's like typically 1 to 3% of their treasury. So, it's not a huge like financial commitment to be in Bitcoin, because like the worst thing that could happen as a Fortune 500 company is if you lend out your Bitcoin and somebody rug pulls you, or there's some smart contract that gets hacked and you're down and your shareholders are super angry.
So like I kind of agree with that last part, but like I guess I disagree. I feel like it's going to vary based on the personality of the person that's making decisions, right? And I think that we're going to see a varying degree, because like some of these people that are in these positions are going to get hired to manage this, right? So they're going to be like basically paid to do what they're already doing, and those people are going to have a completely different mindset than somebody who's always been in their Fortune 500 job, and they've always been paid, and they really didn't have any exposure to crypto before this. So like I think the belief system around crypto for each individual case I think it's going to vary, right? I think we're going to see some Fortune 500 companies that are going to get really risky with this and see the value, and they're going to be like an American Express and completely pivot on what their company does, or they may even spin off a completely different division that like is focused on this, and they just allocate treasury management to that entity that they own, right? Like HP does this all the time. HP all the time will find some new segment that they want to experiment into. They'll do some testing. They'll see it successful. Then they'll take one of their executives. They'll make him the CEO of the endeavor, and they'll spin it off as a completely different business unit with completely different equity ownership. And HP will just will just maintain like a percentage ownership in it. And I think that's what we're going to see. And I think what Rishi said about people buying Bitcoin and then using it as collateral to get access to cash to be able to do things with their business, I think that's going to be like one of the most revolutionary pivots from Fortune 500 people, like the ones that find out how to leverage, like how to diversify their balance sheet into Bitcoin, and then leverage that Bitcoin into a smart contract platform to take out a loan, to then be able to use that money while also holding some appreciating capital. I mean, I think we're going to see that. And I think that's like the people like the Fortune 500s that do that first are going to be looked at as like these giga brains, and the ones that do it last are going to go out of business.
Yeah. I think also, like, I mean, to use a couple examples, Tesla and Walmart, two completely different companies, but two companies that could put a lot of dry powder towards, adding Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Also established companies with pretty brilliant people on those teams at every level. I mean, varying levels, but you got some of the smartest people out there working for some of these large companies. And the way that organizations, corporations, companies work, the way that they're successful, and the way that they, move is that, yeah, they're late to show up because they're not out there innovating on the fringe anymore. But they're quick to gobble up. And you got to believe that, let's just take Walmart first. As soon as they add, Bitcoin to their balance sheet, they're a logistics distribution company. Blockchain is already something of interest. I mean, they do business with so many other Fortune 500 companies. It's just the same currency that a lot of those other Fortune 500 companies will have on their balance sheet. It's almost like in the new landscape, it's almost like the petrodollar. It's almost like, okay, you can value stuff on a Bitcoin basis if you choose to. So it opens up, and the point is, a company like Walmart has a bunch of people working at Walmart in teams, and somebody's going to be like, all right, great, optimization, cool. How do we make money on everything that we do? let's put a team on. How do we innovate here? How do we go into this? How do we bridge this gap? Let's get our blockchain people on it. They're going to start working on it. And they've got resources. Like I said, they're late to show up, quick to gobble up, and they can put unlimited amounts of resources towards that innovation. Take a company like Tesla. You better believe, I mean, they've already said, or Elon's already said, they bought a bunch of Bitcoin. They're running a fully operational node with proprietary scripts and stuff. They're essentially mining, participating, backing up. They're building. All the engineers, they're building. And either they're building their own stuff, or they're building on it, or they're playing with it, they're working with it. And a company like Tesla, with a guy like Elon, is going to be one of those more risk-taking, and they're going to figure out some stuff. And Walmart may go more into the liquidity, currency, trade type stuff. Tesla, those guys, they're going to be building cool shit on blockchains. They're going to be experimenting with what they can plug in. I wouldn't be too surprised if they've already skipped over to the Ethereum system. And a year from now, Walmart's going to be working with their Bitcoin balance. They're going to be doing some stuff in crypto that they weren't doing before they had Bitcoin officially on their balance sheet. Because now they can do everything that they want to do. And then same thing with Tesla. Like a company like that, they're playing around. They're building. And the last point I want to make is, when you have multiple companies jumping in and doing their own thing in the space, that's when you're really going to get the blow off the top when it comes to innovation. Like, these corporations are going to take the crypto space as they accept and adopt this new game. Like, the amount of innovation that's to come is going to be orders of magnitude beyond what we've seen so far, because the amount of corporate resources that can go into throwing stuff at, building out potential solutions for billions of dollars. Not just, oh, okay, cool, $1 million project. Oh, okay, cool, $10 million market cap. No, we're talking about saving a couple $1 billion a year. How much money would you throw at a blockchain project or at a new liquidity token? So I don't know. I just think that the floodgates are really significantly opening up in ways that we can't even imagine, the consequences of every action type thing.
I remember, and like, I get where both you guys are coming from. I just remember watching an interview with Michael Saylor on CNBC, and just when he first announced he's buying Bitcoin, and just how much pushback he got back, specifically of like, are you a technology company or are you a financial holding company? And like, there is a lot of credence to that, because they serve shareholders. And while I think we all agree that Bitcoin is a macro bullish asset, there are going to be ups and downs. And Wall Street is a quarter to quarter operation. Everybody views things on a quarterly basis. And, we are going to have down quarters. And so for that reason, I think, and we got to also keep in mind, like, Michael Saylor just held that conference with all those Fortune 500 companies, maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. So it's still very, very, very early for Fortune 500 companies to be doing anything in DeFi. Again, especially with the lack of regulation in the space. Hedge funds, investment managers, all those people, yes, totally agree that they are 100% doing all of this DeFi shit, trying to earn yield. But that is because that is their game. That is what they do in traditional finance already. But for people like Walmart, Tesla, even, I just don't see them in the next year really dedicating lots of resources to earning, 20, 30, 40% on their Bitcoin, in addition to the capital appreciation, just because it's not their model, one. And if it was, why would you share that with shareholders? You know, like why would you do that for? I don't know. It seems like much more of a banking thing to do, an investment thing to do, and I just don't see all of these Fortune 500 companies jumping ship on what they're doing. Maybe not even jumping ship, but just attributing a ton of resources to try and, you know, it's hard. It might not be hard right now to earn a lot of yield because of how inefficient the market is, but it's going to get tremendously harder to earn like a lot of yield, like to yield farm and to figure out what assets to stake. It's just going to get like exponentially harder to do that, and I just don't see that being something that Fortune 500 companies who are already competing with their competitors attributing a tremendous amount of resources to right now.
I don't think they have to contribute a tremendous amount of resources. I think it's one of those things that they can contribute, 1 to 3% of their balance sheet. And I think that 1 to 3% could quickly turn to 10%, depending on what they got into. They chase, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They find something new, high yield. They move in early. They get high APY. All of a sudden, it's rumored that they're in, and then the value of it goes up. They just 10x their money pretty quick. I think that's only got to happen like a couple times before then they start taking it pretty serious. But I agree with you. I don't think it's something that they invest a whole lot in at the beginning.
Sailor might do some shit like this because he's the biggest bull of them all. But like, no, I don't see, like, none of these guys even have Ethereum on their balance sheet. They're not in crypto at all. They might be personally.
Have to declare Ethereum? Like, the thing is they have to put Ethereum on their balance sheet, right? Since there's a utility for it, and they could classify as gas. Like, does it have to get listed on their balance sheet?
I mean, it really depends on how much they have, and if it is worthy of being its own line item.
It could be an operating asset, theoretically, if you're using it to generate yield.
I mean, if you're putting $500 million of your money into Ethereum, then you probably are going to find that on a balance sheet. But what happens if you go $1 billion into Bitcoin and it doubles and you're at $2 billion and you move $500 million, 1/4, but still 500 million into Ethereum? You're probably not going to see a separate line item. You're probably going to see Bitcoin holdings as a line item turn into crypto holdings on balance sheets. And you're probably not going to see it declared or designated separately. But it may be a year away when that happens, when corporations start asking, hey, what am I supposed to do here?
I think they should. And maybe I'm just a negative Nancy here, but I just think they should focus on their core competency. Just like focus on your business. You have diversify your treasury into something that could be cash in the future, and just leave it at that. Let the finance professionals be finance professionals.
So you're telling Elon to build his stupid cars.
No, I'm telling Elon, if he wants to do Bitcoin shit, do it with the boring company. Do it and actually, I thought that was actually probably the most just ironic tweet. It was almost when he tweeted like the boring company is an anagram of Bitcoin, BTC. Like they both have the same letters. That was just one of the things that I was like, are you just like publicly coming out and saying you were affiliated with Bitcoin, like the genesis of Bitcoin? because it was like, why else would you tweet that? And like, yeah,
Elon's so ironic that he's just going to rust away. He's not going to die. He's just going to rust away.
Oh man, yeah. I wanted to bring up another topic. NFTs. Have we, you know, is the top end? Have we already seen the peak?
Absolutely not. I want to show you guys this new cool thing that I found. Okay, so I was doing I was going through my old Telegram DMs, and I saw where I was trying to get a job at SingularityNet, like after the ICO and stuff, and basically, like they wanted me to be like a full AI developer, you know, and they like the guy, like the biz dev guy, gave me all these like portals to go in and try to show them, like, and I was just like, you know, screw that. But when I clicked on it and I saw his profile, it said that he is the CEO of Alethea.ai. And it's ALETHEA.ai. And what it does, he's partnered with OpenAI, NVIDIA, and Huawei. So it's pretty big deal. There's like less than 300 people in the Telegram, or there was like when I joined. Basically, it gives anybody who has an NFT to convert their NFT into an INFT. And an INFT is an intelligent NFT that can have artificial intelligence placed on it. And so you could make two crypto punks have a rap battle. Or you could actually make thick Pokemon battle each other, and with like you could turn your thick Pokemon into an INFT, and then you could like actually make them have a real, like the AI would make them battle each other like you were in a video game with like moves, and it would like you know, like they did one with like Darth Vader, to where you can make like Darth Vader say anything that you want to say. It's kind of like a whole like deep fake thing. Is like these guys are like on the forefront of deep fake. So like this guy left AGI and he started this company, and there's going to be a governance token that they're going to integrate. And I'm trying to pitch that they airdrop the governance token to AGI stakers and to Sing DAO holders when that airdrop comes out. But
is Alethea affiliated with AGI at all?
I couldn't find a direct affiliation, but I mean, all of Ben Gortzel's prodigies all go off to do like great things. And so it's kind of like,
it's looking like it. Yeah, that's fascinating. To me, like the primary consumer of Alethea would be like gaming companies. Like, give me that technology for any user to upload whatever they want. And I don't know. That's kind of, am I thinking about this the wrong way, or what do you think?
I mean, the possibilities are endless. You're just talking about making an NFT editable, or like adding artificial intelligence on top of an NFT. So like right now, you know, you're talking about like deep fakes, rap battles, games, but like you could talk about having a mortgage contract NFT that automatically fills out based on like somebody, like, you know, you maybe you've got your information stored in your Gmail, and when you access the document with your Gmail, the AI of the NFT goes ahead and pulls the information that's from your Gmail and populates the form. You know, it's like there's all kind of cool stuff you could do with it. Just making NFTs artificially intelligent.
One of the biggest things from that panel, going back to it with Peter Thiel, was that AI, specifically for China, will lead to like 100% Big Brother, just because they're already like have like a very censored society. And again, I will preface this with like, this was the most conservative panel that I've seen in a while. And it was very anti-China. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. But it was very much like, if we do ever figure out AI, then there's things that the US will never do with it that China is willing to do. And it's very much going to be like just CCTV and all that stuff. It's going to be ubiquitous in that region of the world.
Well, we got definitely some interesting stuff going on. We got some of the biggest people, Peter Thiel, Elon, Mark Cuban, some really big people stepping up, into the spotlight. Really, really interesting tweet from Suzu, to me at least, on just the particular wording, mentioning the cycle, just the nature of the tweet itself. We didn't really talk a whole lot about HNT. Maybe we'll do that the next time around. I'm still anticipating a lot of movement there. But yeah, where are we in the alt cycle? It's interesting to see these people step up and to start kind of talking about Bitcoin and the way that they're doing it. And Mark Cuban with the Ethereum ecosystem, and Peter Thiel. It's super, super interesting. We'll see where this kind of stuff goes. I'm excited. I think we're at the very, very beginning stages of a monster alt season that's going to last as long as, kind of into the late summer, early fall, probably is what I'm expecting. But yeah, what do you guys think? Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
All eyes on the Coinbase direct listing. I think that's the catalyst. And it's not like Coinbase is not going to release a ton of bullish news after they IPO. They're, who knows who they're going to list on their exchange and whatnot. So.
I don't have anything. I am just a willing participant.
Yeah. We're all willing participants right now. I feel like we're all on a raft, and we've been sitting on this raft, all three of us, for a long time, a few years out at sea. We've had a chance to be saved by ships before, but we're like, nah, we're waiting for the right current. We're waiting for the right move. And we're out there sunburned, starved, with diamond hands and diamond balls. And we're at the ebbs and the flows of the water. Can't fight it. But yeah, just willing participants along for the ride. I'm glad to be alongside with you guys. All right. You guys have a good one.
All right. See you guys later.